Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the People's Empowerment Podcast. And today I've got Pete, who's actually a member, and we're going to get into a discussion about what's been going on with him, how he got into this awakening movement, and a bit more about his life in general. So, Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
So, do you just want to give a bit of an introduction to yourself so everybody knows a bit more about who you are?
Yeah, can do. I'm 68 years old. Started off military family, military career. Joined the army, went through 6 years in the military. Joined manufacturing industry when I came out of the army. I believed in the system, if you like, the military system, king and country and all that stuff, or queen and country as it was then. Went through manufacturing industry right up to a senior level, a director in a public company that was manufacturing bits for tanks that are now being used in Ukraine. In, I guess, 2008 or so, I tripped over the Hunger Games books. I thought they were sort of a kiddies thing, so hadn't really been that interested. Then I heard that the woman who wrote the books had been very anti-reality TV. Thought, okay, that'll do for me. So read the books, watched the films. I then went through a couple of life events that started to switch things in my head. Things didn't seem to add up that I'd always believed in. Monetary system, justice, etc., etc. Somebody suggested to me that if I liked the Hunger Games, I would like the Zeitgeist movement films.
Yeah.
So I watched those. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, the three movies and then the Venus Project. At the end of the third Zeitgeist movie, it's like a big switch clunk in the head. And suddenly, you know, the movie that everybody talks about that I can't remember the name of, where it's obey, obey, and then when you take the glasses off.
Yes, I know the movie you're on about, and I actually can't think of the name either.
Just it.
But yeah, I think pretty sure everyone will know. They live. They live.
They live. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. And it suddenly I started to see that as if you got the glasses on or off. So 2008, 2009, and I started to explore initially the monetary system, started to understand how that's basically a confidence trick that we're all being done over with, and started down the rabbit hole. There's a meme I've got somewhere on Facebook that shows two guys sitting on a doorstep in white rabbit suits with baseball bats. They're covered in blood, and the meme says, "Go down the rabbit hole," they said. "It'll be fun," they said.
Yes.
And here we are. So I say a couple of life events woke me up to the way things actually are.
Yeah, did you want to talk about what those life events were?
One of them was the defence company that I worked for. I was operations director, public company, 10 million, 12 million turnover. My car allowance, and this is 15, 20 years ago, was 500 a month, big salary, shares in the company, etc. Board of directors, 6 directors, I was one of them. And there were some things in the board meetings that didn't feel right. I was responsible for stock and managing the manufacturing side of the business. And they were declaring, bear in mind it's a public company, they were declaring £3 million worth of stock. And I knew fine well, I managed the stock, that we had about 1 million, just over 1 million. And it got to the point where I was being sort of ostracized by the other directors. I knew that I was right. So in the end, it got to a situation where I resigned, which cost me dearly financially, and I've never fully recovered from that financially. About 6 months later, I was vindicated because the managing director was marked off the premises, the shares were suspended, all the other directors either resigned or were fired. I suddenly started to think, I don't know, something not right here. The other one I'd rather not discuss publicly, but
Sure.
so far there's some elements of it that open my eyes to the way the courts work, the justice system. And no. So that caused me to look at everything differently. it's very difficult now to see any movie, read any book without seeing a subliminal message. It's really quite difficult. It's a bit of a curse, to be honest. There are times I think it would be better not to know, just be ignorant. But and because now we've got the latest thing, we've got the submarine, which is all a bit odd, and the gender ideology thing. I've said I'm going to write a book called I Don't Understand.
Yeah, it's pretty mad, right? And yeah, you touched on quite a few things there, and also I notice it in myself too. Like when I'm watching like a Hollywood movie or anything, you can just be like, oh, that subliminal message right there. I can see what we're trying to do, but I don't know. But at least for me, being aware of it, I guess it doesn't seem to have an impact, and I can just still enjoy the rest of the film. Usually, it doesn't tend to, thankfully.
Them, but I'm aware. Sorry, I'm cutting across it, but I'm aware that it's not what it purports to be.
Yeah. So it's interesting as well, though. Also, with some films, there's the subliminal programming, but also there's like little nuggets of truth. I don't know if they do that on purpose because it like the human condition, the human how we are. We like to hear some parts of truth, so maybe it's just a trap. But it's curious that, right? You ever noticed that too?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I watched one the other day. Actor's name's gone right in my head. I'm not a celebrity geek, but a film called Hypnotic, and it's very sort of matrixy in that what we're seeing is not real. And
Okay.
just Hypnotic. Yeah, can't remember the guy's name. Yeah, a big star, but again, messages all the way through it. But only the people with the glasses on or off, whichever way around it is, can see the messages. Everybody else is get a grip.
Yeah. So you've been awake quite some time then. It's been like 15 years roughly for you.
Yes,
So
yeah, it's a steep hill to climb.
yeah, that's quite a journey, man. Do you want to speak about, okay, there's two questions here. The first, let's go through perhaps some of the greatest challenges that you've found over that time period, being on this awakening journey.
One of the biggest, and I'm still struggling with it, is the financial system, because we are effectively slaves in the system. It doesn't matter what we do. I hate the term consumer. Absolutely hate it with a passion, because it seems like we're here just to consume, and surely the God is more to life than just consuming. So the financial system is probably the biggest issue. It was the first one that I discovered with the Zeitgeist movement, where they talk about a moneyless society. I don't know if that's something that you've come across.
I did watch the Zeitgeist films many years ago, and the Venus Project was a good idea, and the idea of moneyless society, I guess it was resonating with me a while back, but then I changed my perspective on money, and I realized that it can actually be a useful tool. It's just that it's in the wrong hands, so to speak, the creation of it. But that was my journey with that.
Yes, yeah, and I kind of get that. I think ultimately we have to do away with the financial system as a whole, and the resource-based economy makes far more sense to me. The difficulty is, how do you get from where we are to where we need to be, and that journey. I can't see how we can do that without some bloodshed on the way. But I don't know. So it was that really that, if you like, connected me with Empower the People. Ultimately, trying to fight the financial system, very difficult to do from inside. I don't know. Are you familiar with Detless and Steve Knight?
No, I haven't heard of Steve Knight.
Other people within the group have. And it probably cost me about 12 grand in total to end up in a court with various things that I ended up in court with. And you're going to lose, because I went to court several times over water, and the judge is sitting there, a circuit judge, he's paying for water, and he doesn't get the fact that there's a trust involved, and that the whole thing is a con, the fiat currency, all of that stuff. Just don't get. So you're not going to win.
Yeah, so I guess expand a little bit. So this guy, you're saying he ripped you off, or?
Yeah, I mean, Simon and
Yeah, I'm sure
Simone.
Simon's probably mentioned his name somewhere. I just haven't.
Yes, yeah, Simone has some knowledge as well.
They're probably hearing it right now, like, Travis, how could you not remember that person?
Yeah, yeah. What he says, it's very plausible. The difficulty is you start on the journey with them 3 years ago, and it makes sense. And buttons are pressed, and you're kind of sucked in. At the outset, there isn't a discussion to say, this is what it is, you do this, and this is the consequence. You're just doing things, and you're realizing the consequences further downstream. And it's really very, very difficult because you end up in court ill prepared. Steve Knight is a narcissist, and I've been present when he's spoken to one of my colleagues who went through the same debtless route. And basically, you pay for half an hour consultancy, mentoring, £300 for half an hour, and 20 minutes of that will be telling you you're an idiot because you haven't done the right things. And so I backed away.
Sure, there are people that will tell you an idiot for far cheaper.
Yeah. So yeah, I went through that process, if you like. I ended up looking at the your arch enemies.
Thou shalt not be named.
Yes, them, not the Matrix mob, the MFS mob. Got involved with them, and then I tripped over one of Simon's videos. I've known Simon for quite a long time, and I saw a video that Simon had put out saying this is a complete con, and followed that through and ended up with you because obviously it is a con, was a con.
Yeah, wait. What do you mean what was the exact video he was talking about?
He put a video out talking about trusts and the way trusts were being managed by MFS.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Okay, cool. So yeah, I was going to ask you how did you find Empower the People, and so what's been your experience with us then? What would you say is your favorite part about Empower the People?
The apparent integrity, honesty, the fact that it's all open, the fact that if you have a mentoring session, it's recorded, you've got access to it. It's just open. It feels kind of refreshing. I had an initial discussion with Simone. I've had a technical discussion with Simon, and I'm now on the mortgage challenge. I've got a mortgage issue that's going to bite me in the tail soon, and hopefully we can do something. So I'm on that journey now.
Awesome. Well, good luck, man.
Thank you.
So we went through some of your biggest challenges that you've faced since you first woke up, but how about some of the highlights? What have been some of the most amazing things you've experienced or learned or picked up along this journey?
Probably the lights coming on at the end of the third Zeitgeist movie was a pivotal moment. At various stages, you start to see how the monetary system is working, how we're being tricked by the monetary system. And I think that, again, going back to the financial system, that really is the nub of it, because we're all sucked into it every day. There's nothing that we can do without having to spend it or try and find some way to earn it to stay alive. So the highlights, the positive things are understanding that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to some degree. I was just seeing if there was because you mentioned about what happened with Steve Knight, and that seemed like quite a sad experience. And then I'm wondering if there was, because a lot of people, or at least can speak about how this journey has helped them so much change their life in a really positive way. And sometimes there's like powerful experiences that they may have had, or like you say, I guess for you, the monetary system's been a big part of your journey, and that when you first woke up, that was what sort of triggered it off. Yeah, it's just the counter question to the biggest challenges, see what light is there along your journey.
Yes, I think that, I mean, it's a gradual awareness, if you like, rather than taking the glasses off and seeing everything as it is. It was one of the moments was the Zeitgeist, the end of the Zeitgeist movies. The rest of it has been a gradual, you go down a rabbit hole, burrow, and there's something that opens up, and some of it's not very pleasant. You come back out and go down another one. And I think a lot of it, the enlightenment, if you like. I've also started to explore some of the more spiritual side. I've never been a religious person. I always thought that religion was spiritualism was really just another branch of religion, until I started to explore it. I struggle because I don't like people very much. I'm not very tolerant of people,
Uh-huh.
which is a bit of a problem because there's quite a few of them about. This book I was going to write, I don't understand, is based on the fact that I don't understand what anybody does most of the time. I just look outside. I don't understand any of it. I don't know if that answers that question.
Yeah, so I was like you. I grew up in a basically an atheist household actually, because religion's in decline very much so in the UK, and I'm not sure what point I started to become what you call like an agnostic. It's like I think there's something out there. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like there's something. I remember even at school talking to friends, and we just, we don't know what it is, but there's something. And then, like you as well, I get into like spirituality, and I'm like, wow, this is really, really amazing and really incredible. And I feel when we're on this journey, because so much of what's happening is very negative and it's very dark, and there's a lot of bad things happening to people. To balance it out, I feel it's almost essential to have some form, whether it is a religion or some form of faith, belief system, spiritual foundation, just to balance
Yeah,
it out. What do you think?
yeah. No, I agree. I think I've come around. I mean, look at it about a very basic scientific fact. You can't destroy energy, or what we believe to be a scientific fact. You can't destroy energy. You can only transform it. So I've been present at a couple of deaths, and you don't see anything. Nothing happens. There's no sort of smoke or anything. The lights go out, and it's quite clear that there is we know that we're electrical energy. You can measure it.
Yeah.
You get a multimeter, you can measure it. So we are electrical energy. Where does that go? So I don't know. I don't believe in God. I don't believe that when you die you wake up and you meet your mum and all that stuff. I don't think that. There's a Disney Pixar movie called Soul. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
No. Watch that. It's a
Okay.
kids
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, I have a thing where I sit with my grandson and watch a movie, get some ice cream, lay on the bed and watch a movie. And we watched this one night. It's a bit above him, and he sort of enjoyed it. But as soon as it started, whoa, what? Yeah, it's not a kids movie. No.
Okay, so I guess my natural question now would be, well, and this is such a brilliant question because nobody really knows, but what do you think happens when we die?
It's this whole thing about oneness. Let's assume that the Big Bang actually happened and that everything came from nothing originally. So we are all effectively part of the same thing. We are all one, if you like. Sounds a bit David Icke. Went to see him a few years ago. Interesting guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of get that whole energy thing. Whether we're actually aware of that, one of the things that he talks about is we are the infinite oneness having an experience, and that kind of makes sense. Which is, watch the movie Soul, and that tells you.
Okay, yeah. So that's sort of like whilst we're here. So you said, but like, because you said you've been present at several deaths, and you've seen that at least physically we don't see what's going on, but the electrical energy or whatever it is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think? Would you say that electrical energy is some form of a soul? Is that what you were getting at?
Yes, if you like. Yeah.
So have you given any thought to what happens to the soul when we die?
This is the bit that I find difficult, because then if you're part of the one, you're not aware of yourself, because you're not yourself. You're part of everything. I'm not quite sure how to square that in my own head.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes, I'm not sure whether there is an awareness of the fact that I don't know whether you are still individual or whether suddenly you're part of everything and it's just an infinite sort of knowledge. I'm not sure. I can't sort of picture it in my own head. My brain's not big enough. But
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you speak about it, because it's like, yeah, so even right now we are a part of that oneness, right?
yes,
So I guess what would be different when we die? Do we just forget that we were separate and then suddenly we are all a part of this big
yes,
energy again, or whatever
yes.
being?
I rather think that it's that way. Yes, yeah. I mean, yes, we are all one. I mean, it's very difficult to say because I actually don't like people very much. Most of it,
Yeah.
because most of them don't think that what goes on in here. Most of them aren't thinking. They're not using it very much. And I don't tolerate fools easily. Um, I don't mean that in a arrogant sense. I don't think I do. I try not to be arrogant, but we're born with an amount of capability. The majority of people seem to be quite content not to employ it to do anything. But this whole concept of love, that's where it is. That's where it is.
That's where what is? What do you mean?
That's where everything is. And I think that's where our success will be. Because if we can start to come together as individuals, the big difficulty with people at the moment, everybody wants to be, and part of this is based on the political aims of the last 30 years. Everybody is now so concerned with self. I've been driving for 50 or 60 years, and I watch everybody's driving about. It's me, I, me. Nobody's thinking about anybody else at all. And it seems to be everywhere you look, it's like that. You're at a shop, it's all gone. It's all about individualism.
Yeah, so
So
you say you've seen a difference in your lifetime, that people weren't like that. Where how long ago would you say? 30 years ago? Was it a different story?
Over the last 30 years, I would guess. I mean, the real sort of switch was in the Thatcher era, when it's all about everybody being their own person, and it's all about you've got to empower yourself as an individual. And that's got to the point now where there is only the individual. Nobody thinks about the collective, and I'm nervous about using the term collective because that has political connotations. But I'm not content with that either. But I think until we can recognise that if we are actually one, then we need to treat each other as if we are, and everybody's out for themselves in every single second of every day. That's got to change before there's a major shift in culture, I think.
Yeah, man. And so my question to you then would be, how do you think we could change that in the people's minds?
I don't know.
Big questions on the People's Empowerment podcast, man.
Sorry.
Mixing around.
The big problem, I think, is our education system is part of the same shift. Everybody has been taught now to be only themselves from being little kids. I mean, I watch my grandkids, got 8 grandkids, not 10, 8 grandkids, and you watch them, and it's very different to 10 years ago, the way kids were. And it's not the way they're being brought up. My daughter brings up her kids the same. My daughters bring their kids up the same way they were brought up. But the kid's different. There's something in the ether that is making things different. And I think we've got to start with the education system, which brings us back around to the whole gender thing. It's very easy to get very dark very quickly. But unless we can start to teach kids manners, teach them that, yes, there are differences. People are different, but we're all the same. One of everything down the middle, 2 of everything down the outside. And if we start to think about other people, put your indicators on in your car, not because it benefits you, but the guy behind you would like to know what you're doing. And it's as basic as that. And unless we can get people to understand it is about other people.
Yeah, so perhaps that's why there's a bit of a a homeschooling revolution happening? Do you think that's quite the answer to that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Several of my friends at homeschooling. A good friend of mine's a musician. Several friends are musicians, and the togetherness you get when you go to a concert, when people play music, that the tingly feeling, the goosebumps when a song plays that presses your buttons, all of that sort of stuff. That's it. That's what we need. But we've got to educate the kids. Have got to understand that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, man. Well, absolutely. It's like what happens to children when they're young really shapes their perceptions for like the rest of their life, right? So those crucial younger years, yeah. And I see little bits of it on social media of you just can't believe what's actually being taught to kids in the schools. You look at these books and it's all sexualized, or it's talking about, transitioning into different fucking genders and all this shit. It's quite mad.
What's
So
happening with one of my grandsons is 8, and in his school, one of the young boys has decided he's a girl. So all the other kids now have to call him her, and he can wear a dress and so on. Yeah, okay. For adults, if they really want to play dress up, then that's fair enough. But we shouldn't be encouraging this in 8-year-old kids.
no,
Yeah. Girls want to be boys. That's always been the case. You tomboys, and you got more effeminate blokes. That's the way of the world. But there is a fundamental difference between men and women, and we should, for me, be celebrating that. We should start to teach kids that at school, primary school. Never mind teaching them about, yeah, no, drag, the whole drag thing, reading stories to kids. What? No.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, I guess the child when they do this and they decide now I am a girl, whatever. I guess they get a lot of attention for that. Maybe it's
Yeah, yeah.
partly why now that it's accepted. And like you say, there was the idea of a tomboy or like the reverse. I don't think there was a nickname for the reverse for a boy to a girl, but they were still a boy or they were still a girl. It's still you're just slightly so. Yeah, interesting. I couldn't imagine one of my you'd think, I guess now maybe the culture, atmosphere is different, but if I was at school and then one of my mates said I'm a girl, they'd just get endlessly torn to pieces. It'd be merciless. Maybe that's better.
You must have seen this thing in the States where not in the States, in Rye College in the UK, where it's a secondary school, but some kids decided they're a cat, and two of the class, for real,
Yeah.
two of the classmates have said, no, you're not a cat, and the teacher has jumped down their throats. They've now been told they're going to go to another school. What?
Wow.
Yeah, just no. Go and burn the school down. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say that. But yeah, all of it. I end up on a sort of a hobby horse, but all of it, we need to change it very fundamentally.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about manners. I've said I don't like people very much, but I'm still courteous to people. Open the door, all of the basic stuff that we were taught as kids. That seems to have gone, and I think we need to bring it back. There's a guy, I don't know whether you know Jordan Peterson. Most people have heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He talks a lot of sense.
He does. I enjoy listening to Peterson. It's very satisfying to listen to a lot
Yeah.
of his perspectives, and he's very anti-woke, so I enjoy a lot of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he still hangs on the monetary system, so I have to just park that bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So whilst we've got you here, Pete, is
Yeah.
there anything else you'd like to share with everybody whilst I've got you on the show?
I don't think so. I hope some of this is of some interest to other people. I don't know. The difficulty for me is how do we this transition? How do we? I started on this a few minutes ago. How do we get people to come together? Because people are so intent about looking at the difference between groups rather than looking at the points of common interest. This musician friend of mine and I started a group a few years ago called Awake, to try and get people to come and talk to us, whether they agreed with us on everything that we said or not. But it's really difficult because everybody immediately wants to pick holes in what you're doing. They want to disagree and start their own group. I think we would already be at the tipping point if people came together and said, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you, this part of your argument. However, this area, yeah, I can see some common area. And suddenly you've doubled the group size. You do that several times. We're already at the tipping point. The old meme of all of us, the people holding up the people who are sitting at the top, so-called elites, just pull the chairs away. They're not there. There's nothing holding them up. But that will only happen when we start to come together and recognize our power as a collective. And again, there's that word that I'm a bit nervous about, but as groups of people, yeah, we need to take their power away. The whole the keep cash thing that's going on at the moment, that's a way of bringing people together.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be how it changes.
Yeah, so I think this conversation would be of great interest to people, and it's good to have get to know the members more as we go through the members brave enough to step up and come onto the show. And that's a very big question. What you're saying, like how do we get past? Because what I've seen as well is over the past 3 years, and now it's all calmed down. Thankfully, no one talks about COVID anymore. But what I saw is that brought so many people together that were awake on the activist scene, because it was very easy for everyone was against lockdowns. That's what we're going to protest about. That's the main focus. Nobody could disagree with that. Same thing with like vaccine passports. It was like, yeah, this is very big thing. Everyone disagrees with it. We should focus on this. But then when that went away, it's like now it's sort of like, well, I think this issue is more important. I think this issue is more important, and it's a challenge. And then, like you say about when people disagree on some things but agree on other things, how do we mitigate that? And
I think the awakeness. Sorry, cutting across you. The people were against the lockdowns. No, maybe 20% were. It's the Pareto. 80%.
Yeah. So I was speaking about within the already awakened, not the general population, but in the awakened population, that the activists, everyone was like, yeah, okay, the lockdowns, that's it, go.
I think there is some good that's come from that, in that a lot of people who were just going along with it. There's a guy we took over an allotment just recently. There's an old guy who got an allotment a couple over, who's actually a magistrate. He collapsed up there a couple of weeks ago, and I was just chatting to him on Sunday, and he said it was the injection. That's what caused his heart problem. He knows. He said, I just went along with it because I just did. So he now is questioning.
So yeah, that's the silver lining, right? With a lot of people, they need to really have it seriously impact them before they wake up. But thankfully, not everyone's like that, and people wake up easier. I don't know what the difference is, why some people wake up easier or not. But then we get onto like, okay, so when people are awake and we realize there's something going on, then how do we get together? How do we organize? How do we come together in movements? And I guess that empower the people is solving part of that issue. But you know, it's going to take time before we have enough numbers to really, I don't know, shake the country. If that's where we're going to go with this, we'll see. But then I think a lot of it comes down to like where people are at individually, like in their terms of development, and the fact that if they haven't worked on themselves to enough of a degree, then they can't handle working in a group, because they'll get triggered. They'll be like, well, you didn't agree with me on and then it hinders the greater goal. So yeah, that's it.
I don't know. I mean, the empower the people thing is great insofar as, you know, I've experienced it. How does that turn into something that becomes community based? Another one of my friends is very oriented towards community, and I think that's where it is. Whether it's online, but ultimately it needs to be face to face. We need to be able to sit around a campfire, or somewhere with a beer or coffee or whatever presses your buttons, and talk about what makes you cry, what makes you laugh, what presses your buttons. How do we get to the point where we can have that discussion, as opposed to it's sunny today?
Stay tuned, Pete. That very may be in the pipeline. We can have exactly that, all going well, but I won't say any more on that right now.
Okay.
But yeah, well, it's been brilliant to have you on. I've really enjoyed this
Oh,
discussion, and I'm sure many other people will. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you around in the
indeed.
e-sport
Yeah.
world.
Thanks for the chat. Yeah. Good to talk.
Cheers, Pete.
Okay. Thanks a lot, now.